Hey everybody, this is Win. Welcome back to Theater 3 and to our set design lecture here today. I hope you enjoyed the last lecture that we did on playwriting. I just thought I'd try something a little bit different today. I thought we would try a screen share of my desktop and with me actually here. I don't know, it kind of feels a little bit more face to face, a little bit more intimate this way. So let's just go right into it, into our set design lecture. I'm going to post this tomorrow. That will be Thursday. So you should be able to access it first thing in the morning. So you can watch it during class time or watch it a little bit later. I don't blame you if you want to sleep in and don't want to wake up for 8 a.m. just to watch this lecture. But I wanted to give you something to do in case you wanted that type of schedule. And yeah, just rigidity in your daily lives. So this is on the set designer. We're going to go through a couple things. I've embedded videos in this, so hopefully they work. If they don't, we'll try to figure out a different way to do this. I might just replay this or try to re-record, but we're just going to go on through, okay? So we're talking about the set designer here, and this is in chapter 9 in your books if you want to follow along. So just first things first, is what I would usually ask people in class is just tell me what you think is going on with this set. What's like the first thing that pops into your mind? And I'd love to hear what you guys have to say in the discussion forums. Please reach out and have those kind of conversations with each other because we do want to have this as an active class instead of just me talking to you, which unfortunately it just kind of becomes. This is from Green Day's American Idiot on Broadway. And I had the pleasure of seeing this show on tour when it was rolling around, and it's a massive set. And so the first thing that just kind of jumps out at me is these multiple TV sets. This is an expensive set. This is just such a luxurious set that is complicated. You see there's a giant car hanging up right there. There are people hanging upside down. There's this whole scaffolding, that's what it's called, this whole scaffolding area over here where actors can just play. It's massive. You can see the scale here. The type of the theater that can do this type of musical is going to be a massive one. A lot of opportunity for high spectacle and high energy. So without further ado, let's see if this works. I'm going to see if this link works for us. Yeah.
Please welcome the songwriter of American Idiot, Billy Joe Armstrong.
It's my honor to give you the cast of American Idiot. Don't want to be an American idiot. Don't want a nation under the new media. Hey, can you hear the sound of hysteria? Let's stop blaming on America. Welcome to a new kind of tension all across the alien nation, where everything is meant to be okay. Television dreams of tomorrow. We're not the ones that can follow, for that's enough to argue. Well, maybe I'm in America. I'm not a part of a redneck agenda. Now everybody do the propaganda and sing along to the age of paranoia. Welcome to a new kind of tension all across the alien nation, where everything is meant to be okay. Television dreams of tomorrow. We're not the ones that can follow, for that's enough to argue.
Okay, so the first thing that just kind of jumps out to me when I watch this clip is just the sensory overload. And that's kind of the point. That's the storytelling element that's happening here. As a set designer, you're storyteller as well, and you're trying to convey this story as well as you can all by yourself. And sometimes the set is the first thing that the audience will see, and so that will be your personal psychological priming when you first come into this when you first come into the house and you take a look at the stage. This is the first bit of psychological priming that you may get, and whatever that message is coming through is what we're going to continue, or was what the actors are going to go with. That's what the music is going to hopefully step in line with. That's what the lighting design is going to help to tell, and that's what the costumes are going to. We're all working together to share the nugget, what the story is actually about. So this is about, media. This is about um, everything just in our faces, subliminal messaging. It's just like the Green Day, like a lot of Green Day songs are about these things, and it's obvious that it's important to them that this message be shared about the media in general, and especially our American media and how it dominates our train of thought. So that kind of message goes through for the rest of the musical, and is the most important part in my opinion. And I think the set design itself was the best part about this musical. And you can often see that. Sometimes you can say, well, that show wasn't that great, but the design elements were there and they were helping tell this emotional psychological story. So let's see. Let's see. Let's see if I can move on. Okay, here we go. So this is from an opera, and this is the Metropolitan Opera in New York City. This is called Das Rheingold. It is a part of it's a part of a ring cycle, which is several hours long. I think the whole thing altogether is about 12 hours long. This is just one part of it, so it's like really intense. It's going to be quite different than what we're used to with Green Day. The thing that we just watched with Green Day. See if this link will work. Yes, there it goes. Yeah, so pretty amazing, right? This set is something incredible. Just fascinating what they were able to do with something like this, with enough money, with enough funds, the Metropolitan Opera. So I wanted to point out a couple things, a couple of details in this set. It's pretty simplistic when we think about. It has just a couple of elements here. There's just a giant pole coming across, going from stage right to stage left, and that's being manipulated by automation, by some kind of automated machinery that is making each one of these tiny panels. So that's one, that's two, that's three, that's four, that's five, that's six. You know, it keeps on going, so on and so forth. And these are independently movable through automation and through physical movement, I guess. So that these actors right here are being held up by strings, by the fly system, if you guys remember that term when we talked about in theater spaces. So the fly system is actually pulling these guys in this direction in a really complicated manner, and a lot of safety issues here. So whoever the what we call the technical director, whoever the technical director is who's responsible for this play, has a big job ahead of them. But it is pretty simplistic in its entirety. It's just one long pole right here and all of these panels. And then once you have the panels here, you can just project all kinds of images. You can see that this is all lighting and projection. You can see it's just being reflected on this actor right here. So yeah, and then all of this is just lighting and costumes, and it just becomes alive. So really interesting. I've never seen anything as innovative as this scenic design, and it's just what happens when you have those kind of funds. Another beautiful look. I mean, you can see there's just the pole going through here, and all those individual patterns. And in this specific shot, these actors or actresses are being held up in the fly, in the fly loft. This fly system is keeping them up, and they're just slowly lowering them down, and then the projections make them seem like they're underwater. So pretty cool stuff. This is one of my favorite shots. It's actually from the perspective of those who are sitting out in the house. And so we're looking at this stage picture. It almost looks like we're looking at it from above, like a God shot in film and television. But all of that it is that you can see that there's the bar that's going side to side is right there, and it's just lighting that did this. It's completely lighting and just a different panel that's over here, and just a different angle. So it looks like these characters are going down the stairs and they're being held up with that fly system as well. You can see the carabiners and these wires holding them up. Pretty special, huh? I'd love to know how you guys feel about this, and if you have any questions about this particular scenic design. I've done a lot of research on it, and I'd love to know if you guys have any questions. Yeah, we can talk about it. We can talk about the complexities of doing something like this and the challenges that come with it. Just the first thing that comes to mind is just the pure fact of how much money do we have? Is it capable of doing this kind of, like, do we have the capabilities, the money to make this kind of thing happen? And not at the community level. No, not in community colleges or community theaters would this be feasible at all. But it is fun to see if you have enough money to do something like that. Let's take a regional theater that I like very much here in Southern California. It's called South Coast Rep, and they did a show here called Tartuffe. You can see that. I guess I'll move my little face out of the way. Yeah. So this is Tartuffe. This is a set rendering designed by Dominic Saran. And you can see here, this is a set. This is a scale set, a box set. This is all made out of paper, and so there's no color added yet. This Dominique has not put any color on top of this, although he's included a couple of seats here in the first and second, third rows, or so on and so forth. The first thing that jumps out to my mind is this central image right here, this big image. And the first thing that I start asking questions is like, where am I? What is this? What time period am I in? Is it indoor or outdoor? Obviously, it's indoor because we have a chandelier here, so that gives us some exposition, that gives us some information on what's happening in this space. What kind of space is it for? Is there a purpose for here? And I look right here, and this is a symbol. These symbolic pictures. This right here is telling me that this is a religious sanctuary. This is a church. This is a chapel, and all of these symbols are conveying a message. They're all telling us something specific and giving us that kind of stage picture that we're looking for. It's the type of psychological priming that we need to go into something like this. This is the comedy play, and it's very bright, and it is a period piece, so you can see their characters dressed in period costumes. And also, without even the characters here, we could tell that this is probably a period drama because these kind of structures don't really exist anymore. I mean, we can see them in Catholic chapels, but they serve a different purpose now. So we can determine the time period. We can determine a style just from looking at this stage picture at some of these elements here. We can tell that we're indoors from these particular window fixtures and the doors. Everything looks really regal, so we get a sense that this is expensive. This is an expensive space. This is very interesting. Yeah. Good. So this has been adapted for the SCR stage. This is the set when it was actualized. So we see that it changed quite a bit from its original box set, from its original scale rendering. So now a couple of things have changed. This regal door, which is now in a silver inlay, and this gold piece, we couldn't tell what color that was before because it was all in white. Now it's just shimmering gold or brass, bronze type piece, and it really becomes a focal point. It becomes a place where our eyes immediately go and jump towards. Yeah, you can see how soft the colors are on the wall. So maybe not as maybe these are a little bit more contemporary. These images are a little bit more contemporary. These colors are a little bit more contemporary than we thought they were before. I'm thinking that it might be all made of stone, like the floor indicates. But this looks like a chapel of some kind. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Greek theater, shall we? You guys remember what this is called? This is called an amphitheater. So here we have, this is actually kind of a thrust type amphitheater. And the big determining feature that Greek theater had was this big building right here, this giant building that's right here in the center was called the palace or the castle. And whatever play that they were putting on, it was usually some kind of huge Greek drama that had a bunch of battles happening right here in the center of the courtyard. Something like the tragedy of Troy, or the Iliad and the Odyssey, those big Homer classics, right? And so this would be an indication of something like this is Troy, and then they would wheel out a giant Trojan horse, and then they could continue to tell the story. This front area with a fountain, it usually has some kind of fountain or a city center or a city block, usually was the acting area. This is where scenes and really dramatic stuff happens usually in this front part of the area, because if everything dramatic and intimate is happening back here, then these guys sitting in the seats just won't see it. It's too far away. And so we brought it a little closer, and this set, you might see that this is a little familiar. So this is an amphitheater thrust type space. And yeah, we're seeing some of the vomitoriums in this space, right? And remember that word when we talked about vomitoriums? There's one right here. There's one right here. There's one right here. There's one right here. Okay, those are called voms or vomitoriums. Remember when we talked about the gladiators vomiting inside those vomitoriums? Yeah, you can see the entrances and exits over here with the lions. Yes, but most of the acting took place down here in the courtyard or the city center. It was known by a bunch of different names. But whatever happened, it usually ended with this last little piece right here, the castle or the palace, when they'd have a huge battle scene, and then that was the climactic moment. We remember from our playwriting lecture, the last crisis of the play is the climax, and it's happening right here. It's happening right back here with all of this battle, and less of the talking and the drama that we got earlier in the play. This is all just action, right? So there's the Greek theater. We move a little bit later to the medieval period, and we had these things which were called pageant wagons. And pageant wagons were an interesting type of theater. They were essentially just a troupe of actors that would go from town to town, and they would teach a moral lesson. Okay, that's essentially the thing that I want you to know about medieval theater and pageant wagons in general, is that they taught a moral lesson. That there was this moral lesson of you'd start here in the middle in mortality, and sometimes, and this was all on wheels, and some people would just push it on to the next town, and then they'd set up shop, and then everything would just like fall down. If you remember that scene in the Buster Scruggs on Netflix, like the story of that storyteller that just had that he had no hands, or he had no arms and legs, and they just, and Liam Neeson's character pushed him from town to town. That's essentially what like a pageant wagon was kind of like. But they had this medieval church message that was funded by the church, and so they would go from Italian or French or Greek town, and they would go from place to place, and they would show this type of theater of you starting here in the middle, and if you were good, you'd go on to the right, the stage right, and this is heaven. This kind of represents heaven, and you'd prosper here, and you'd live forever with God and His wisdom. Or you go on to the left, and this is hell and destruction. And so you make all these kind of bad or good choices on the stage. And it was all about this big moral lesson about how to be a good person and how to follow the wisdom of the church and stay inside, stay faithful, I guess. And then we go way further into the future, into the Elizabethan theater, and this is the Globe Theater. You guys might recognize this from Shakespearean plays, or from Shakespeare in Love, or something like that. Something that has been recreated for that. Actually, funny enough, Utah Shakespeare, which is in southern Utah, has built an exact replica of the Globe stage that exists now in England. It was burned down a while ago, years and years and years ago, and then they rebuilt it. They rebuilt it fairly recently in the 1900s, and so it exists today. You can go to England, you can go to London and find this exact stage, exactly how it was back then in the Elizabethan times. Here we have the upper stage. There's just a couple of things. I'm not going to point out every single element in here, but you guys can read for yourselves. You can pause the video if you need to. But the main thing here is sometimes this is referred to as the first proscenium stage, or the first proscenium type stage. And the big thing to recognize here is that most of the people that were here watching the Elizabethan theater, Shakespeare's theater, watched it from right down here in the pit. These guys were known as the groundlings, and they could just lean against the theater, the proscenium arch. They could just like lean right onto the apron of the stage and just watch the play from standing. And the really rich people were up here in the gallery, up here, and the Queen often frequented this theater, and she would just come here. She would sit on either side of the gallery. She had a seat, obviously, and you can see that there are several layers of this stage, which is dynamic. So there's a stage door right here. There's one right here. There's one right here, and then there's some balcony. There's a balcony upper stage area. Remember, like you can tell that this is probably used in Romeo and Juliet. It's like, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo? And right here, a lot of elements happening. There's this big pole. There are two giant pillars that are happening right here on either side that usually denote the transition from space to space. So if one character is in Italy and the other is in France, or one of them is in England and the other one's in Egypt or something like that, then you just have this area be England and this area would be Egypt. And then you go from place to place, and the audience just kind of bought it that this pillar was a transition phase, that this was just a transition element. Pretty interesting, huh? Yeah, and there's trapdoors and stuff like that. And this is where the actors stayed. They stayed in the tiring rooms, and then there's a bunch of wardrobe and costume storage and stuff like that. So it was really intricate. It was a fascinating space, and it still is. It still exists. You can see a play in the Globe still these days. Once the quarantine is over, we can go. So, what are our objectives as a set designer? What are the things that we need to focus on? What are some of the things that we're worrying about, what's keeping us up at night. So the first thing that we need to do, the first foremost thing that we need to worry about is setting the tone and style, because like I said before, it's the first thing that most audiences will see. They'll jump right into the action and they'll see your set. And so you get to change, or you get to establish whatever style and tone that is right from the get-go. If it's a dark, scary play, then we should see that. The first thing that we see is the thing that's going to affect us. Oh, this is going to be a scary play. Or if it's going to be a fun-loving, interesting, happy comedy, then those colors need to indicate that, and the style of and shapes of the scenic pieces need to tell that story. You do need to establish a locale and time period. That's our responsibility as well. We need to keep in time with some things, and some patrons, some audience members will come after you and they will say, like, you got this wrong. Those are colors that did not exist in the 70s. Right? It's like you're using colors in the 60s, or those are some things that we used in the 60s, but not the 70s. So some people lived in these time periods, and so they're going to know and recognize the locale and time period right away. So we have to be accurate. We do need to be consistent and cohesive with the director's vision and other design elements. So we can't just go on and do our own thing. I went to see a play once. It was a Shakespearean play, and in it was supposed to be the style and the tone of this production was the carnival, or it was a fair, or yeah, like in Freak Show, like the American Horror Story Freak Show, which ultimately, when most of us think of a carnival or a fair or something like that, we tend to think that it's a little scary these days. There's a lot of horror films out there about like dangerous clowns and stuff. And so the first tone that I got when I first got into the space was, oh, this is creepy. This is a creepy space. This is a creepy play. And then it proceeded to be a comedy, a lighthearted comedy that really just didn't gel together because the audience was kind of feeling a little uneasy because of the fear that the set was giving them. So we got to be careful about being cohesive with our director's vision. So if the director is like, we want this show to be funny, we want it to be a funny thing, then maybe we should not establish this in a carnival or a fair, because that's creepy, right? We do need to provide a central image or a metaphor. I showed you that central image before in the Tartuffe set. Go back there really quick so you guys can see it. This is the central image of the Tartuffe set. Yeah, those central images are so important for us. Most of the time, they're the key to understanding what the play is about. And sometimes the set designer will give you a sense of what to look for, like what's important psychologically, what is the nugget, what's the key to understanding the story, and solving design problems. You remember our set when we looked at, when we're looking at this Das Rheingold set, the Metropolitan Opera. These actors are in danger, and they could easily be injured at any time with these carabiners with the fly system. And so as a set designer, you need to make sure that this set is completely safe, that these actors feel confident in their movements and that they're not going to be scared the whole time that they're on it, because that's when accidents happen. We want to make sure that they're well taken care of. Okay. So yeah, we need to solve the design problems. This is just a fun little game I like to play. Realism or non-realism? What kind of style are we talking about? This is The Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe. It just left my brain for a second. So The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is obviously a non-realistic play. There's some non-realistic elements happening here. Some information that just pops to my mind is that, oh, it's outdoors because there's the snow here, and there's an element of a street light, and this looks like a door that's outside, and she's just not equipped to being in this cold weather right now, but we get some semblance of trees, and this is not like a literal set. This is not a realistic set. This is a magical fairy-like set. So we shouldn't take it too seriously. This is obviously a children's play, and so we have to have it gives it a little bit of a storybook feel to it. Looks like we're looking in the pages of a children's book. and that's really clever. Realism or non-realism on this piece. This looks pretty realistic to me. This is a realism piece. But you guys can debate it all you want on the discussion forums. You can tell me whether or not you think this is a non-realism piece or a realistic piece. I say it's bordering on realism. It could be some heightened realism happening here because we have some of these fantastical elements coming up around the tops of the or the sides of the house here. But this is a very spooky space. This just kind of screams horror or mystery, some kind of Agatha Christie play or something like that. So yeah, you see several entrances here that are really fascinating. Something's going to come out of that area. All the areas that have the shadows and these little dark areas. It's really brown, so we get a sense of maybe this is a time period. This could be 60s or 70s or even early 80s. Could be something like that. It's very bland and brown and kind of disgusting and moldy and gross. Central image, I would say that there might be a little central image right here, right in these shadows, like something's going to sneak out, something's going to grab us. So that's definitely a psychological storytelling feature right here. Something could come through this window or something could come out of this seat right here. Yeah. 5 elements of set design in your book. This outlines it in chapter 9. There are 5 elements of set design, and I want you guys to remember this and be able to adequately explain these in your next coming test. So line refers to the physical lines of the silhouette of the stage. So we can see here in the Footloose set, these lines are really straight. And psychologically, what does straight say? Like, what is that? How does straight differentiate from like a curved line? Curved lines are soft and smooth and a little wavy and they have a psychological give, but straight lines are something that's really narrow and constricting. It means like serious business. And if you know anything about Footloose, if you guys have seen the Kevin Bacon musical, you know that he's living in a town that forbids dancing. So they're really strict here. So obviously all of the lines in Footloose are going to be very rigid, very straight. Mass refers to the weight of the set, refers to how much stage business is actually happening, how much furniture is on the set, how much bulk, how much weight is weighing down the set. So this set right here, it looks pretty light to me. This is a fairly light set. It's not a massive set by any means. So composition refers to balance. It refers to the balance of the set in terms of like how balanced stage left and stage right is. These characters that are living right here, stage left, versus the character stage right. This looks like a pretty balanced set myself, but in the next couple pictures, we may see a set out of balance. We may be able to adequately see this. Texture is, it refers to our senses. The senses that we use to define the set. Like, is it smooth? Is this set smooth? Is it rough? Is it warm? Is it cold? Does it smell bad? Like, do you remember when I said it was this set? Like, it gave me a mildewy feel. It's a moldy set. It's kind of gross. This set is really, it seems clean. It's almost like pine scented. It's smooth. It's woody. You know, like we give it these adjectives that can kind of bring it to life by giving it a texture. Color just refers to the literal colors that you're going to paint this set with. So a lot of blues here, earthy tones. This one is very gross and brown and neutral colors and stuff like that with a touch of blacks and black and white. This one is much more light. Yeah. So realism, non-realism on this one. This one looks realism to me. This looks like it's deeply rooted in realism, but it definitely should probably be a period piece because of the furniture. Furniture is a dead giveaway on what kind of time period we're dealing with here. Yeah. And just a couple of questions. If we go back one, we can see line, mass, composition, texture, color. Look at the lines here. There's a mixture of both. This is a very intricated set with some straight lines, some curved lines. There's line in terms of it doesn't look like there's any structure here at all. When we talk about composition and weight, looks like this is a fairly balanced set. It doesn't look like this set's out of balance. Maybe it's a little bit heavier over here than it is over here, but it's fairly well balanced. In terms of the weight, this is a bulky set. This is a very heavy set. You can see because of the amount of stuff that's inside of it, right? So we see there's a bunch of furniture over here. There's an armor plate hanging on the wall. Like there's a fireplace over here. This is a heavy set. There's a lot of bulk. There's a lot of weight here. Texture here, I'm getting a lot of warm vibes. I don't know. There's a bunch, like it seems soft, like especially in some of the furniture here, it's soft. Yeah, I guess you could go on and on talking about what kind of texture. And then the colors, obviously, there's a lot of cream and whites and regal colors. Non-realism, obviously, here we're looking at a non-realistic set, something where all the elements, none of these elements really make sense. I've never seen space like this. It seems like all the lines here are curved, which means there's no structure. It's all loosey-goosey, and anything goes in a set like this. You see a couple straight lines, like there's a straight line there, a straight line there. It's a bulky set. It seems to me to be bulky a little bit. Seems to be pretty balanced. I guess maybe it's a little bit more weighted on stage right, but yeah, composition, yeah, it seems imbalanced. The bulky weight, some other things, texture. It looks very sterile. You know, like everything is it's like a hospital, and the fluorescent lights are kind of oppressive here. So it seems clean. Maybe smells like pine sol in here. Those are the kind of textures that I get. And then colors, yeah, you can see for yourself the kind of teal and metallic colors that we're using to differentiate this futuristic set from other sets that we may have seen in the past. Cool. So a couple of terms that I will define for you. These are also in your book. The fly loft. We talked about that, right? Also called the fly system. That's the that's the area with all the ropes backstage that you can lift actors and props and scenery and things like that up into the air and lower them back down. Yeah, that's pretty self-explanatory. The scrim, on the other hand, is something very interesting. I'll give you an example in the next slide of what a scrim could look like and how we could utilize a scrim. But essentially, a scrim is a thin weave fabric that when you shine light towards it from the audience perspective, from the house, it becomes opaque. It becomes black, or not black, but like a solid color. It becomes like the solid color that you can't see through. But when you shine light from behind it, from on stage towards the house, then it becomes translucent. It becomes see-through. I'll give you an example of that in the next slide. But just know that it's a thin weave fabric that can hang off of battens on stage, and that it gives a kind of dreamy effect. It gives kind of like this. It can look underwater or a part of a hazy memory or some kind of supernatural element. A prop is something that's manipulated by an actor, and that's how it's defined in your book. It's the difference between a prop and a piece of furniture or a scenic piece. The actor has to manipulate it for it to be a prop. So a pocket watch is a prop, something that an actor can use and hold and manipulate with his or her hands. A rendering is a design that's usually done in color that a designer draws either by hand or on a computer, in a program, in a drafting program, or in just a general paint lab program of some kind. Most of the renderings that I see are done by hand, and most designers like to do a first initial rendering on hand with either colored pencils or paints, excuse me. CAD, the Computer assisted design, any of you who are mechanical engineers out there already know this term. The computer assisted design is what we're looking at right here in this picture. It's a computer program that will help us determine the dimensions of each of these scenic pieces so that we won't run out of space when we actually go to build it, when the carpenters themselves actually build it. And that's another term that you should probably know. A carpenter is someone who builds the set, is a theater worker that can build the set and build certain pieces. Most of the furniture is just going to be pulled somewhere. It's just going to be pulled out of storage or something. But some of the flats and walls and things like that, things like this, will probably be built by carpenters. And all of this stair piece and stuff like that, will probably all be built by carpenters. And they'll be drafted in this CAD program or a CAD program like this. The technical director, also known as the TD, is responsible for the installation, construction, and scheduling of all of the design elements. Okay, the construction, the installation, and the scheduling of all of the design elements. They are responsible for those duties and for making sure that all of the technical elements are working hand in hand. He or she is usually the person responsible for safety and making sure that everything is done by a deadline. They're the person that's keeping everyone on track. So the TD, you got to have a really good TD if you're going to start a theater company. So this is a scrim. You can see the scrim is a thin weave fabric, like I said before, and that there's light being shined behind this scrim so we can see what's happening on the other side of the wall. So it almost looks like this is a row of trees. It's a cheap looking scrim, but this is probably a college production of Into the Woods or Once Upon a Mattress or something like that. But it's a good example to show like what a scrim can do. These actors behind the scrim are visible because we're shining light from behind the scrim towards the audience, and the lights that are being shined towards the scrim from the audience are right here. These lights right here are not very oppressive, and so we can still see through it. But if there were just to be these lights shining and then black lights from behind, we wouldn't be able to see anything. It would look like a black screen. It would look like just a solid wall. So that you can do a lot of things with the scrim. Yeah. Cool. So that concludes our lecture for today. This is what I want for your set design assignment for your homework. And this is going to be due next week, Tuesday. I want you guys to imagine that you're a set designer and that you want to establish an interesting space for this play that you're putting on. You don't have to actually do the play that you've written as your playwright assignment. I know I get several questions about that some of you students are like, does it have to be the same play? No, it can be any play you want. It can be just a play that you're making up in your mind, but you're just establishing a space. And my favorite thing to do is to find a realistic picture, to take a picture of something, of a space, your bedroom, or something. I know we're all quarantined right now, but take a picture of your backyard, or take a picture of your roommate's room or something like that, or your kitchen or something like that, and rearrange the space in a theater. Like I want to see some of these elements like lights. So I have a couple of examples of these assignments of the homework that some of my students have turned in the past, and we'll go through a couple that are really good. And anyone who can do this. These are all different levels of artistic integrity. I know some of you are like, oh, I'm a terrible drawer and I can't draw anything and I can't color anything. Trust me, you can if you just put enough effort into it. You totally can do this. I want you to think about what kind of characters live in this space, or what kind of characters exist in here. What are the actors going to do on stage in your space? Decide what kind of play this is. Is it a dramatic? Is it a comedic play? Is it a horror? If you answer any of those questions, I want to see that in your design element. I want you to think about the mood, the atmosphere, the time of day. How does this change the colors that you would use? What's the size of the furniture versus the size of your realistic picture? I want you to take a picture of the space, the actual space that inspired you to design this set design, and then I want you to sketch a picture and to design. I want you to. It doesn't have to be a bedroom. I don't know why it says bedroom right there. I want you to sketch your set design and then upload it to Canvas so that I can see it and grade it. Okay. So here's one. This person claimed that they didn't know how to draw at all, and look, it looks beautiful. You can tell that this is just their living room that they thought of, and they added some art pieces that they thought were really classy. They added this little hanging chair that's hanging from the ceiling, and then they added some lights up here. A little cut off that this is yeah, cropped a little bit weird, and they had more light fixtures and stuff like that on the sides, and they had a proscenium arch over here on the side, which indicated that that's part of the scene, and that this is what it's going to look like. And here's the stage apron, and then there's the audience. So I really want to see how this implements onto the stage, onto theater, right? Here's another great, a great set design by a student of mine. And you can see that this was taken of RCC campus, but this was someone designed this set on as it was on RCC. And there's a door right here, and there's landing that goes up. This is supposed to be the quad where we used to have class, remember? So there's some elements there that kind of look like the quad, and then there's this whole grassy area. And this is all on the stage. She even indicated that there are wings right here in the backstage, and these are the curtains. And downstage, she indicated that these are landing areas where actors can perform on these balconies. Really interesting. And this is one of my favorites that I've ever had from any student. She did this on a computer program, and I highly recommend if you have the capabilities of designing or drawing on your Surface Pro or your iPad or something like that. If you guys do this often, if you're really artistically inclined, then by all means use a computer program to draw your set or to draw your rendering. You look at all of the elements she even drew in a reflection of the windows. I love this set so much, and I just admire her for doing this. And there's great central images here, and we get all of the design elements that she paid attention to in class. And there are some lighting instruments here. She's just helping all of the cohesive elements of working together as a theater unit. And so it's just an excellent example. Just wanted to give you guys a couple of examples of this assignment in the past and how amazing they have been. So the bar is set high, and I know you guys are capable of a lot of great stuff. So yeah, there's our lecture for the day. I think we're just gonna keep it. I think we're just gonna keep it at that. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you guys next time. Okay, bye bye.